I think we've beat the Arbu topic to death.
Yeah, Arbu has been thoroughly slaughtered, and we still have Glyphmark, Velvet Remedy, and Canterlot to get through.
Yeah.
But first, a little side tour into narrative structure, and I have this in relation to Old Olney in particular, but it is a wide-reaching tendrils of problems.
Yeah, I think we can definitely use Old Olney as our focus point here.
Yeah. So like this part of the story, this volume, particularly like in the middle of it, it's sort of, I have it described here as peak Fallout Equestria in terms of it's in this weird like second act slump. It's far enough away from any meaningful shifts in the status quo, and it just leaves the characters kind of on autopilot. They can't develop sharply in this part of the story because we've got more world building tour to complete. So they just argue in circles to fill the time, and it just leaves their all their worst tendencies just kind of coming up over and over again. Old Olney is obviously the most egregious example of this because there's no good reason for them to be there. Like, all it would take is just Calamity doesn't get injured on the way out of the Maripony, and
it's seriously that simple. Yeah,
they just move on. And like, there's no reason to be there, and there's not really that much in the way of consequences. Like, Velvet gets her leg hacked off, and a week later she's fine.
Yeah.
Like, there's like, it's mentioned again, but it's not a serious problem. I mean, they pick up like the energy weapon ward, but like that's sort of like it. They bring it up, and then it's not really adding anything. This doesn't go anywhere. This is just more world building, and it's like to the. I mean, it's not that there's nothing to like in the Old Online chapters. I was actually I initially thought the hospital horrors were just like, it's just the thing from the games. They're here now, and there's a really uncomfortable thing with like the tentacles and Pip being worried that she's about to have a very bad time.
We've all seen enough hentai.
Yeah, it's kind of, I just reading that and just getting like a sinking feeling. I was like, oh no. But I thought that was just all pointless fluff until there was like the audio log with like the person who had the accident with the barrels and just kind of turned into one of them, and it's just like, it's kind of...
that's... I have my note on that is, Jesus Christ, how horrific.
It's absolutely, horrifying. And it does the world-building job of, like, Taint is, like, bad and dangerous. It's like the one redeeming part of the hospital, in my opinion, and even then it's like, you could have relayed this world-building detail to us in a way that didn't take up 2 chapters!
Yeah, really. If I could just stop you there real quick. That's my general takeaway for all of Volume 4. A lot of it is pointless. Pointless fluff, but there's also a lot of really cool world building, and kkat takes a lot of opportunities to sprinkle breadcrumbs here and there about the world and the story and setting up later plot points.
Yeah. It kind of feels sometimes like the flavor text in an RPG rulebook, just kind of put together as a story.
Yeah.
Where like the main purpose is not telling a story with compelling characters, but showing off the world. And it's like...
Yeah, it's like those like little splat pages that they have in each section in a Pathfinder book.
Yeah, except we also have to put up with like multiple pages of Pip monologuing about her feelings again at the top of every chapter. The story is... It's a very long story, and this is it seems to like get longer as it goes on later, like Homestuck. And we're just kind of reaching the... Cause, I mean, you mentioned the story about like, I remember how we got onto Zenith, which is just like there's these nuggets of characterization that are just kind of stuck in the swamp of details that is this part of the story. And there's just all kinds of these things getting lost. And it only gets worse as the volume goes on, because Canterlot is just...
it's a fucking mess.
It's a deluge of, a pile-up of narrative payoff that is all just fighting with each other for attention, along with a whole load of other random clutter that doesn't matter. And we have no way of telling which is which, just because there's just so much of it. And... I know kkat uses Chekhov's gun as a just in commentary about the story, just talking about the planting and payoff, and I feel like kkat is misusing that, because what they're really talking about is planting and payoff.
Yes,
because the principle of Chekhov's gun is it's the literal definition of it is like, if you put a gun on the stage in the first scene of the play, then in the second scene it should go off. The idea of that isn't, the key part of that isn't planting and payoff, it's economy of detail. It's that you don't put shit in the story that doesn't matter. Because it's distracting.
Yeah, well, and I think it's made worse, though, definitely in the Canterlot chapter, by the fact that Pip starts off with, I made sure to cut out parts, and I'm like, bitch, you didn't.
Yeah.
You lying little shit. You did not cut anything out. The only parts you cut out is you taking a leak.
And it's like what I mentioned with the or what you mentioned with the audio logs. It's just having A and B and C plots, and we're all just jumping around, and also the scene to scene transitions between them are at very weird times sometimes as well. This is something I mentioned way back in podcast 1, how she rescues Derpy off screen. We just kind of... It's it's a hot mess.
Yeah, it's I
all of us have a moment of silence.
I never liked... Oh yeah, it's there's a lot of Chekhov's gun in Fallout Equestria. It's like, no, it's not Chekhov's gun. It's as you said, it's setting up and payoff. Which I think is good storytelling, because it's it gives a lot of details and a lot of world building to the story, but it can be very distracting at times when you have all of these little details sprinkled throughout the story. Some of them don't go anywhere.
Well, yeah, that's just the thing. It's like if it's a if it's a plot detail that doesn't go anywhere, then it's not Chekhov's gun. It's the opposite of Chekhov's gun. It's Chekhov's Nerf gun.
Chekhov's Nerf gun. But and I think the other thing with the payoff and details is the way that everything gets crammed together. She planned on finishing the story in volume 5, and yet it feels like the way everything has been crammed together is that it was we might have a cancellation at season 4, so better resolve all these plot arcs.
Yeah. Well, it's
and then randomly remember that the series is continuing.
I mean, that would be great if they were actually being resolved and not just kind of taken a tour through. It's like because there's stuff that just it's a sort of a setup with no payoff, or a payoff with no setup. It's like Velvet random, when they're in Old Olding, Velvet just kind of randomly sings at a really high note, and this scares away the hellhounds, and it's just how long could you have remembered that you could do that earlier, or did you just do this randomly and it happened to work? What's going on here? I don't think that's ever explained.
It works. Randomly happens and it works. In which again, at that point it feels like then we've got ponies striking things on a typewriter and hoping to get Hamlet out of it.
I have no. So Velvet sings to drive away the hellhounds. And there's no setup to this, and there's also no setup to Calamity just conveniently knowing about this hospital in Old Olney.
That strikes me as more plausible, because he's been topside for a while. He'll probably have some local knowledge. Velvet, because it's not like Velvet pulls this out the first time that they encounter a hellhound, having like maybe read about it or just kind of using general knowledge about animals to like. She does this like in a huff when they're arguing in the middle of a fight, having at like several like encounters through Old Olney. Like she doesn't break this out at the start. She just does it like just somewhere in the middle of the chapter.
Yeah. Just a quick note on Pip and Co.'s journey into Old Olney. I just want to say I agree with Little Pip's strategy of taking pot shots at the hellhounds from a distance, because that's exactly what I did in New Vegas in Quarry Junction. That's really the best method to take care of them.
I have more notes about that strategy conversation in the Velvet Remedy section later. But we'll
put a pin on that.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in that. Like the what was it? There was as I click my fingers here, trying to remember the thing with the Enclave mind control thing. Does that go anywhere?
Yes, that comes up in like one of the last chapters.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. So
I mean,
I guess that we're reviewing right now.
I guess it would be even more confusing if it never paid off.
Yeah,
but also we're just kind of getting back into the thing of the story being such a swamp of details that stuff like this just gets lost. Like one of the things I complained about in the prose section. By the way, how drunk are you?
Well, you dumped all of your complaints at the very beginning, and I couldn't keep up, so I only took like 2 shots.
Okay, that's okay. Good, because I was just kind of like half expecting you just have like chugged half the bottle just with. Anyway, the one of the things I complained about was it just whenever some of the callbacks, not all of the callbacks. Some of the callbacks just kind of kkat just quotes the line that is being called back to like it's a children's show. Which I guess we're this is being written in season 1 and a lot of kind of but ordinarily that would just be kind of annoying. It's like, do you think I'm an idiot? I'm reading the story too. But the story is so long and packed with detail that it actually becomes necessary to keep track of everything. Or to, like, make sure that everyone's still on the same page.
Honestly, I personally, especially... Okay, this is one of the things... Okay, one of the very few things I like about Volume 4 is, like, now all of these individual pieces are starting to come together, and Little Pip is starting to finally form the overall image of this puzzle she's been piecing together this whole time. And I love it when there are those callbacks in her memory of things she's heard and things she's seen. Because it's a narrative way of doing it when you're in a movie and there's like an echo of a line spoken previously and like, oh, now that makes sense. So I personally love kkat doing that.
Yeah, I guess it's just I'm not. I guess it's just a question of technique and when it's appropriate to do that, because I feel like doing that is just kind of the opposite of subtle. And there are times when you don't want to be subtle. So
yeah. Honestly, it reminds me a bit of the first Sherlock Holmes movie near the end, where like he's having this epiphany and he's putting all the pieces together in his mind, and there are these flashbacks to earlier scenes.
Oh yeah, I mean
and he's putting it all together.
That definitely makes sense, because he's a detective, and the point of the movie is a detective movie.
Yeah,
and it's like the alternative is just we sit at we watch Sherlock just kind of standing there putting everything together in his head and then running off to do something, and then we've got BBC's Sherlock.
Before season 4.
Well, because that once we get to season 4, he's just not thinking and just doing.
Yeah. God, I fucking hate season 4 of Sherlock. Anyways,
anyone else have anything to say about structure? Because I've said a bunch. I mean, it's kind of rambled into.
I mean,
it's spilled into other topics. But.
Horse, I would say you're the most knowledgeable on story structure because most of my notes are about the meta narrative of the story itself and criticizing that. So if you have nothing else on story structure, I think we can move on to any other talking points.
Yeah, I don't really have too much on structure other than I mostly it's just mirroring what you said. Is that it would have been, again reminding ourselves that this was written in 8 months, which considering that the Ministries chapter is like basically a novel in itself.
Yeah, it's
it's one of those things that in actual editing passes it probably would have been best to go through and remind ourselves that brevity is godliness.
It's and I know I've said this a few times in the podcast already, but I'm just going to say it again because I think it's really relevant right now. Volume 4 is just terribly bloated with a lot of unnecessary bullshit. The whole point of Volume 4 is to go to Canterlot and get the Black Book, but it's predicated on such contrived nonsense and unnecessary distractions.
Yeah, it's like we just kind of end up in this rabbit hole of so it's like I can see from a setup point of view. It's like okay, we need to go to Canterlot. I'm gonna make a plan to Canterlot. Part of it involves extracting my memories, so I'm gonna leave an instruction list for myself, and we're gonna follow that. I like that setup. That has potential, and they get constantly distracted. We just end up in this the list itself is actually very short, but they get to point 2 as okay, we're going to Canterlot, so we need Steelhooves, and then Steelhooves needs us to do something, and then we get distracted from that thing by another thing, and we get distracted from that thing by another thing, and look where we are. We're in Eradicator Sanctuary. How did this happen?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like how you end up feeling like when you're playing Fallout 4 and you're it's 40 hours into the game and you're like, wait, what am I doing again?
Yeah.
Oh, right, my child.
It's like
I forgot about the baby.
That's fine for a game.
God, some mothers leave them in hot cars. I just kind of forgot about the fact that they existed because I got too busy, playing The Sims with the wasteland. Yeah, I think we've got the bases covered on structure. That's a good place to leave it.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, don't when you're adapting Fallout, don't adapt the gameplay rhythms of Fallout.
Yeah, really.
They're not compelling reading.
Yeah.